Hey there, welcome to episode 4 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. This is not a big show for guests, so it's just me. We could have a guest, depends. This is an audio program really about stories and learnings from them. I have many. I was recently told I am a good storyteller. I don't know, you can be the judge. This audio program is sort of a vanity project, but I do have the tip jar out. I'm starting to do that for the 4 shows that I produce each week, because why not? I do live in Las Vegas, as you may or may not know already. We do have a tipping economy here, though it is, well, that's a topic for another time. But why not? This is published for free. There's no actual advertising, although I will cross-promote my other episodes of other shows and other projects and so on, but no paid advertisers, so value for value. Today we are talking about school here in Vegas, here in Nevada. Sort of a interesting topic in general. I have my own views that are based on this story that I will tell, and clearly this is a summary. There's no way I could pack my school career, which is arguably ongoing, into a reasonably sized audio program. So school, I was the board kid. If I could speak, I was the board kid in class. Were you? Running errands, finishing the homework on the way to school, not even really doing it sometimes. Always had the answer, always raising the hand, always probably accused of being a teacher's pet, which I probably was. And so how did that work out? How did that work out for you? I will tell you how it worked out for me after I run through a couple of the high points. Things always go according to plan, except most of the time when they don't. I think the outcome from your own educational experiences are a combination of luck, gumption, that means like you just work, and to be honest, a library card. And I'll get to that in a second, if I remember. I hope I remember. I have some links in the show notes. My Buy Me a Coffee link, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, DANHUGO. And my Ko-fi profile, which I haven't really done anything with. I got to figure out what I want to do there. I'm choosing these platforms, or I chose them a long time ago, actually, because they're recognizable. I actually think we should all be self-publishing and managing our own things like this, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. As well, on the links section of the show notes, I have 2, unfortunately, obituaries for 2 of my teachers that will come up along the way. Debbie Reeker passed away fairly recently. I didn't reread it for the show. I reread it when I grabbed the link. I skimmed over it. I think it was either earlier this year or earlier in 2022. That Miss Reeker will figure into my Horizon elementary days. We'll get to that. And Zeke Ashley, surprise, passed away at age 59, I think it was, in like 2008. That was something of a shock. He seemed like, he didn't seem that old. Granted, I knew him 40 years ago, but at the time he seemed, I mean, this was obviously a long time ago when he passed away, but he seemed like spry. And the fact that he was a juggler and kind of seemed like a bit of a hippie, just seemed like he would be around longer than everybody. But so yeah, I wanted to point those 2 out. They're pointers to their obituaries, unfortunately, and they were good teachers. And then I have some links to the schools I attended. I didn't put my college on there. That'll be a whole nother topic. But Berkeley Street School in New Milford, New Jersey, Horizon Elementary in Glendale, Arizona, Royal Palm Middle School in Phoenix, Arizona, and Sunny Slope High School, also in Phoenix, Arizona. So let's get to it. In the beginning, I learned how to read when I was about 2, I think. I don't remember if I knew how dates worked at that point, but I believe I was somewhere between 2 and 4. It was certainly before I went to kindergarten at age 5. That would be a problem. I consumed a tremendous amount of PBS programming, the public broadcast system. So Sesame Street was like my favorite show ever. I actually went to Sesame Street, Channel 13, New York, just once. I was not on the show or anything, but we did watch a taping, or however they captured video back then. saw Snuffleupagus hanging from the ceiling, saw Big Bird running around without his costume on except for the leggings. So that was always one of those memories. You're like, oh, there's probably no Santa Claus either. Spoiler alert. So Sesame Street, I used to watch Electric Company. I used to watch La Viva Allegra. La Viva Allegra. Sorry, I wrote it in my notes wrong. La Viva Allegra. La Viva Allegra. Update that. I believe that was Rita Moreno at the beginning. Hey, you guys. That was Electric Company. La Viva Allegra had the sort of a model that would turn around. Anyway, those are old memories. And, of course, Mr. Rogers. Classic. Putting on the sweater and the shoes, sneakers, the trolley, the puppets. Crazy. So, yeah, I was enamored with public broadcast educational programming and reading. So interesting. I had a lot of interesting tactile toys that you interact with, so not ray guns or projectiles in general. I was a big fan of Lego products. We had Lincoln Logs. We had Tinker Toys. We had the big Tinker Toys. I don't know if those are even around anymore. They were probably like 25 times bigger than the small wooden Tinker Toys you may know of. Huge plastic pieces, identical essentially, the straight different lengths and the circle disc shaped hubs to plug them all into and make things. I was big on disassembling things. If I could get my hands on some sort of thing, if I could take it apart, I would. I was attending Berkeley Elementary School. Now remember, I learned how to read already. So my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Urban, did not like that I knew how to read. I was a distraction in her classroom because I already knew what she was teaching. That did not work out well for her. Did not thus work out so well for me, although not too bad. I'm drinking some tea, by the way. Oh, I forgot to mention, shout out to Jordan, one of my coworkers from a long time ago, from the last episode I did about any computer, anywhere, anytime. Jordan actually funded the coffee jar. And so I got some Lavazza. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the coffee stuff in the Buy Me a Coffee newsletter. Keep my supporters up to date on the details. Anyway, so Mrs. Urban did not like that I knew how to read. We did though, and this was a New Jersey school, so we did kind of rip through the reading program. We used to sit at a little round table, like a hub table, so that Mrs. Urban was in the middle of it, and it kind of wrapped around. And we would each take turns reading from such fine classics as Green Feet or something, and Blue Dilly Dilly, or these random, simple. They were textbooks for kindergarten. So I used to read through those, and I could read them. Yeah, piece of cake. I was ahead of the game, which does pay off. By the way, if you ever want to teach your kids something, teach them to read. Don't worry about the internet. Don't teach them anything else. Start with reading. It will be a game changer. Luckily for me, Mrs. Urban moved from kindergarten to first grade, so I got to keep the same teacher who didn't like that I was already reading for first grade. Great. So school starts in September. Actually, in New Jersey, it would start, I think, after Labor Day. I don't know if that's still common anymore. So after the first month of school, we took a trip to Arizona. This was before our family moved to Arizona, so it was a recon trip. So my sister and I and my mom's friend, her kids, we all knew each other for a long time, like at least 5 years. My mom's friend and they were friends from kindergarten. So I was taking October off from first grade. So I got all my homework and did it all on the road. It's pretty straightforward. Then when I got to Arizona, when we moved, I began attending. Actually, how did we? I'm going to ask about that someday. So we moved into our new home in Glendale, Arizona, and I began attending a brand new elementary school. It was called Unit 10, unnamed. And the president, the principal, the goofball, J.P. Lively, I think it was Jack. He was quite a character, very loud. And one memory I have is the school practiced corporal punishment. That's paddling. And I believe it was in fifth grade. Fifth grade? No, it was in fourth grade. our classroom was very near the office where these punishments took place. And we heard at least one time, Jack, Mr. Lively, was going to town. He seemed very excited by this infliction of corrective action. And that, I don't know if it was real even, to be honest, but I'm not a big fan of corporal punishment. I don't think it's effective. I guess you would disagree. So Horizon, Unit 10, became Horizon Elementary eventually. I was there from first grade. And by the way, when I got there, I was apparently the blue dilly dilly and the green feet monster or whatever it was, these kindergarten, or sorry, these first grade textbooks, which we read early, kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in there. Like I said, mixed up the teachers, one teacher, two classes. By the time I reached Horizon Elementary School to begin with Unit 10 at the time in May, so I was going to catch the last month of school, Berkeley Elementary, I guess, school districts on the East Coast maybe, would finish school after the first day of summer, my birthday, June 21st, which would mean I would have my birthday in school. In Arizona, they ended school because of the summer. They would end school pretty much at the end of May. That was a nice change. So I was really in school for like a month. And I learned that I had already finished all of the curriculum to that point, kindergarten, first grade, before I don't even know if it was in October, but the bottom line was the elementary school that I was moved into was actually trailing the one that I was attending, despite Mrs. Urban. So this is important because it was the beginning of my sort of taking my own way. Also in Horizon, I used to be the errand kid. I was, like I said, the teacher's pet and all that. So if there was a note to bring to the office, something to go get from the ditto room, yeah, we had dittos. Anything that was administrative, I was always ready to go because I was always done. I was always finished with any homework. I was always staring at the ceiling, bored out of my mind. And it wouldn't be until third grade when Debbie Reeker, whom I mentioned earlier, and her team teaching partner, Lori Raker, basically they said, hey, you're running errands for us all the time. You should be doing something more productive. So Miss Reeker convinced the school, with my mom's input and support, to move me into a 7th grade, so like junior high, middle school level science class. So I would attend this one class out of the normal rotation with 7th graders, and occasionally they would cheat off me because cheating was a thing. But very interesting times. It was probably closer to where I could have or should have been at the time as far as my interests and my, I guess, my abilities. But technically, though, I don't think it's wise to mix the age groups like that. I don't think one third grader, so again, that's 8 years old, in with a room full of people that are 4 years older, is necessarily great at that age. So a couple of social implications, a couple of issues that led me later in life to reject skipping grades because I thought there might be, it's sort of detrimental. I mean, a lot of things up until you're going into college have a sort of a timeline that fits. And if you start skipping grades, you stand out, you get undue attention for things that may or may not be good. I like to lay low for some of these things. So like, just do my school. So anyway, I learned a bit though, photography, some chemistry. It was just general sciences, right? So how to develop photographs, why when you blow through a straw into water with lime, as in not the fruit, you will see clouds form, like what's happening. So just some basic science, very, very useful, very interesting. That did not continue. I did not advance to 8th grade science the following year. So when I was in 4th grade, back to normal, back to board. I will say, so 4th grade, I guess because of my experience in 3rd grade, I had a little bit more confidence to move around in the system. The teachers then were, I remember all my teachers up until off to high school. Then most of them. Junior high, I don't remember all of them because we were switching classes. But so Linda Gilman was my homeroom teacher, I guess you could say. Was it Barbara Shull and Linda Atkins, I think it was? Mrs. Atkins. Atkins, Shull, Gilman. That was an interesting classroom. There was more learning going on. Like I said, we were near the office. So still running errands now and then, but sort of took charge of my presence a little bit more for being age, 9? So interesting, sort of another year of errand running, but a little bit more attentive to what I was doing. I also started going to the library. So I had that library card. So the Vilma Teague Library in downtown Glendale, bustling downtown Glendale. That was a library. Eventually, I figured out how to ride my bike there. That would be later. So I could go to the library on my own, but we would go to the library, get some books. So it's probably in there somewhere. Oh, by the way, my family had a encyclopedia set. And I think each and every of the, 30, 40 volumes had bookmarks. So I would read through all of them. So my homeschooling, the flipped classroom idea, where you learn on your own and you go to school for the social engagement and interaction, I was kind of doing that myself. So interesting times at Horizon. Eventually they got some computers, and best scenario for me, 6th grade came along. So after 5th grade with Karen Stelfgaw Gardner, Mrs. Carnes had her son was in our classroom, so Scott. That was a strange dynamic. I had never seen that before. My worldly experience at the time. They were okay teachers as well. Mrs. Delfgaw sort of struck me as someone who was passing the time in the classroom. Mrs. Gardner was an old school. I have a feeling she was a one-room school teacher at some point. And Mrs. Carnes was more of I think she was like a tennis player or something. She was an interesting character, a little bit more energized. But another year of really self-directed education. I believe that was the year that we had, yes, it was. We had the ability to be a little bit more creative. So one of my, I could say classmates, Dan Durhage. Dan, if you're listening, I'm shocked. Dan Durhage. We started a company. We started a company called D&D Associates. And we would make origami boxes and other things, thanks to the tutelage of Chad Harwood, who was a very skilled origamist. So we would basically spend our days with ditto paper. Someday it would become copy paper. Just taking resources with reckless abandon and making origami things and selling them for like a nickel, dime. And at the time, my mother was really getting into architectural drawings. And she used to use, if you're an architect, you have the electric eraser. So you can erase quickly. It's a rotating eraser stick. So there's a pencil sharpener slash eraser. You can erase your drawings. It doesn't tear the paper if you get I like the green. I don't remember what the rating system is, but green. So I had a green eraser. You can get them not in the electric eraser. You can get them just in a holder, which was also popular. And that's nice. That's all well and good. But I used to use it without any holder. So it was just this floppy eraser stick. It was probably 8 inches long, maybe. Something like that. And it was bigger when I was a kid, obviously. And so I used to erase that. I'd be flopping around in my hand and everything. And everybody, oh, what is that? So then my mom would go to the architectural supply store and buy me boxes of these things. And I would sell them for like 25 cents. So yeah, that was our little foray into entrepreneurialism in 5th grade. So probably the most important thing I learned that year. 6th grade, the school got some computers. I was already quite familiar with the school library and its limited resources. Kitty Jaswinski was our librarian. Nice lady. So they had the library computers. They had 3 Atari 800s, which I talked about in our last episode. Any computer, anywhere, anytime. So they had these computers. And like I said, luckily I had Debbie Reeker again for my homeroom teacher in 6th grade. There were some other teachers. This was the beginning of switching classrooms. We were in the portable classroom, so we were out off the main building. The school was still very much under construction, being so new. So I would take time whenever. I don't even know if I had a fixed schedule. I would just go play with the computers, learn how they work. Maybe you can show us how they work. So that was a valuable time as well. Once again, self-directed learning, social engagement, but essentially responsible for my own pursuits, which I think was very valuable. Eventually, though, it became clear by the time I was going into 7th grade that it just wasn't challenging. The situation with the science class back in 3rd to 4th grade, the boredom. I was just always bored. It wasn't really moving along. There was only one teacher named Debbie Reeker. There were not an army of them to make sure that the school was not aiming just below average in its curriculum pursuits. So the idea was, hey, Washington Elementary School District, as opposed to Glendale. Why Washington? Good question. Washington Elementary had faster moving curricula for different areas and whatnot. So signed up at Royal Palm Junior High at the time. Now it's Royal Palm Middle School. Started taking class. I was the new kid because everyone attending Royal Palm was already familiar. They already knew each other because they all went to Washington Elementary School, like 2 blocks away. So new kid on the block kind of thing. Very interesting. Once again, just like when I went to Horizon, new kid joining the class in May. Had to figure out what was going on. So, you hang back, see who's who, what's what. They didn't know me. They didn't know anything about me. So they put me in a sort of a basic core set of classes. I had one extra slot on my schedule, and they have a TA program. You could be a teacher's aide or a teacher's assistant. So guess where I worked? In the library. I became a library aide in the final hour of the class. Sorry, of the day, the school day. So final class hour of the day. So Mrs. Bunnell and Mrs. Sparks used to basically let me have the run of the place. I used to get there first thing in the morning because of the way I would get to school was essentially ride from the parents, drop us off because we were out of district, no school buses. I wasn't taking the city bus. That would come later. So dropped off first thing. So my mother probably at the time could get to work. So I was there waiting outside the library. So I could be hanging out in the library before school started. I would essentially do the stuff that I was going to do during the 7th period, the final part of the day, and then I would go do my own things. So there you go. So that's how 7th grade started. Eventually, I recall this day, not the date, but I recall this day. I was sitting taking a math test in Mrs. Beatty's class. Mrs. Beatty was also the computer teacher. So doing the math, the usual 7th grade normal curriculum math, and I finished the test and very quickly. And there was, for some reason, some sniffling and coughing or whatever. So I was sitting in a room, done, and listening to people like and all that for the rest of the hour. And I was like, I'm going to go nuts. It was very frustrating. So told the parents, this is just like Horizon. It's not doing it for me. So I think my mom called the principal, Jim Ritchie, and they called me in to the office, and they had one of their teaching student curriculum consultants or whoever. This school, by the way, was right next to the district office. You could walk through a space in the fence, like a walkway. So I don't know if she was at the school or from next door, but so she came over, she gave me I don't know if it was an IQ test, but some sort of cognitive abilities test, something. I forgot to mention Horizon. I did participate briefly in a program called PEP, which was something about precocity. I don't remember what the PEP stood for. Learn about Bloom's taxonomy. They would basically bus us to a school. There was about 6 students. They would bus us to a different school where there were no students, and we would sit in an empty room with all kinds of like, hey, learn about this. Here's Bloom's taxonomy on the wall. And hey, here's a picture of a volcano. Learn about volcanoes. So it was really heavy-handed and forced, not really effective. Anyway, so Royal Palm, okay, what are they going to do this time? They gave me this test. Mr. Ritchie called my parents and said, yeah, Dan's in the wrong classes. He should be in the upper advanced classes. So I picked up my stuff and I moved to all the different classrooms. I still was working in the library, but otherwise I moved to Mrs. Wolf's seminar class on literature. moved from the Mrs. Beatty's math class to Zeke Ashley's math class. And I've already mentioned the unfortunate loss of Mr. Ashley. Moved to advanced science with Robert Foster. Moved to, what else? Anyway, my whole schedule juggled around, and I was suddenly now in classrooms full of people that were moving a little bit faster. Zeke Ashley was not pushing hard, but he was enabling any student in his classroom to excel to their own ability. He used to rank people by their grades, and the grades were separated by like a point. So everybody was moving along. I will say that we were good at collaborative learning. So not cheating necessarily, but because, tests, you take a test, you still know how to do it. But we were basically helping each other with the homework in the morning. So instead of going to the library, I would go check our homework. So we would all see, how did you do this? How did you do that? Sometimes we would disagree, and that's where every once in a while there'd be a difference of points, but we were all essentially checking each other and making sure we all understood every single day. So that was also interesting. Collaborative learning, very effective. So when I first got to that class, I had no real familiarity with algebra, and this was essentially an algebra class. Algebra and initial trigonometry. So when I first got into the classroom, I was like, oh my, I don't even know what this is. What's going on here? Probably like 2 or 3 weeks of slowly kind of getting into the groove, doing better, passing tests, all that stuff. So eventually settled in, like, oh, okay, this is what it means to be challenged, to not be sitting in a classroom looking at the ceiling. So that was another critical component. So 7th grade, I started to realize that being challenged was good. That's how you learn. Having good teachers is important. It's not the thing to rely on, but it is definitely an important part. And continuing my own self-directed learnings. So being in the library all the time was helpful. I think I mentioned this in another episode. I first came upon the Meta-Mathemagical Themas book, which was a collection of articles written previously. So not just articles, standalone articles collected into a book, which I actually purchased on Amazon for the Kindle. I don't know if the print edition is still around. I love that book. I've read it cover to cover about all kinds of applied math, essentially. So hanging out in the library, got very familiar with the Dewey Decimal System. Not a big fan of shelving books, although I did that, but just was able to have the run of the place anytime and consume. And the library had its own computer. I talked about this in the previous episode as well. An Apple II Plus, so I had access to a computer all the time. So all good things. But again, all self-directed. That library card always paid off. It was always smoldering. When the Royal Palm Library ran out, I would return to my favorite Velma Teague. At some point, they opened a brand new branch that was a little bit farther away, I should say. And not quite so easily bicyclable at the time, but a bigger library. I used to go there and check out several feet of books. I'd go through all of them. A lot of no fiction. I was not into fiction. So books on lock picking. I do know how to pick locks. Books on anything, you name it. Plus our home encyclopedia, plus the school library, plus whatever else came along. In 8th grade, we ran out of math. There were 3 students, myself, Kevin Kahn, Mike Wheeler, who now had no place to go. So they allowed us to attend Washington High School, which was, I want to say, about 2 miles down the street. We would get there first thing in the morning. Kevin's dad used to carpool, so Kevin's dad drove us because he was also out of district. So Washington School District was highly regarded in this, and this showed it. So we would carpool, drop off, meet Mike there. We would go to the class. All the students in the class. It was Mr. Lujan's class, a very nice geometry teacher. We're there for geometry, and we were learning geometry, and we were doing pretty well. So the students eventually were like, "Wait, what? You're only in 8th grade?" Okay, it was better that it was 3 of us, that we all got along, and we would walk down the street from the school to the city bus stop, and our 90-cent bus tokens to travel I think it was 2 miles to our junior high school. We would get there in the morning, and I believe our morning class was Zeke Ashley. I think. Either that or the library. I could have been working in the library, but it was essentially because the school schedules didn't line up, so we would get in the middle of a classroom. So once again, we're sort of taking responsibility for our own education. We are not limiting ourselves to what's available in our current school. I would eventually take SATs, and I would later, when I could drive, so 16, so 13 for 8th grade. By the time I was 16, oh no, it was before that. By the time I was, I think it was 14, I was taking some math classes at ASU, Arizona State University. I did okay on my SATs. I think I got, I want to say like 11 something. Good enough. So I was taking classes. I think I was in 8th grade or freshman in high school. So once again, pursuing my own path, not sticking with what the school offered. I went to Sunny Slope High School. Now, I was down the street from Horizon Elementary School. That was a walk, even when I was in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, etc. So I could walk to the elementary school. 1 mile farther down the road. I keep misusing that. I should know better. I went to school. Another mile down the road or so. Half a mile? Butler to Northern. Half a mile. Another half a mile. Total of 1 mile from my home, my parents' home. Apollo High School. Apollo High School was just another school in the Glendale Union High School District. I did not attend that school because I had now spent 2 years getting to know my classmates at Royal Palm. So Royal Palm students would go to Washington High School or Sunny Slope High School. Now, when I grew up, my bedroom was plastered on the walls, quite literally, with photos of airplanes. I was always fascinated with flying. So guess what? Sunny Slope High School had an Air Force Junior ROTC program. That is where I chose to attend, and I needed a variance. I did not yet drive, of course, so I would take the city bus in the morning, and I was in the ROTC program, and it was good. Fun fact, the city bus would occasionally be late. So school started at 8 o'clock in the morning. If I caught the 7:20 bus, I would get there on time at 7:30, something like that. It was a pretty straightforward ride. I think it was 5 miles to the junior high. It had to be 7 or 8 miles, something like that. I could check on Google Maps, but I will not. Catch the bus in the morning. It was me and 2 other people, an empty route. So one day the bus was late. I got to school late. I was like, this sucks. So I started taking the earlier bus. So instead of getting to school at 20 minutes to 8 or so, I took the bus before that. I would get to school at 6:30 because there was no traffic. No way this bus is going to be late for anything. So I get there 6:30 for an 8 o'clock school day. When I first started getting there early like that, I was the only one. I would wander around the campus, just kill some time. I was not a coffee drinker at the time. Could have walked over to 7-Eleven and got some awful coffee. The breakfast at the cafeteria at the school would open at 7 or 7:30, somewhere in there. You could see the morning practices for the pom and cheer and football. So they would start getting there around 7. So 6:30, I had the campus to myself, essentially. By the end of my senior year, even though I was driving, I had a car, had a Volkswagen, in fact. But somewhere in there became this whole morning thing going on. And so there used to be activities planned for 7. So this happened while I was still riding the bus. So I'd get there at 6:30 and suddenly there are people around in front of classrooms taking part in activities. And then 7 o'clock, things are up and running. So that was interesting, not because of me, but it was maybe some sort of natural realization that there's more to the day, and the school would end at 3:30, 4. So you could get some stuff done, club activities, et cetera, et cetera. So interesting time. Sunny Slope High School, like many high schools, was a place to sort of take ownership more. I got a job. I was working at McDonald's, had a car. Although the car was secondary. The thing I really wanted to save up for was the modem. That was something I already talked about. So that was my sophomore year of high school. Got the computer, freshman year, waited a whole year, going to user group meetings for Apple computers, wanting that modem. So I got the modem, and then later I would get a car. But the outreach engagement with the modem became much more important to me. Had to take a break there and turn off one of the Amazon devices that decided to start playing music on its own. Technology. Anyway, so the take home, Sunny Slope High School was a good step. I had the familiarity with my classmates. I wasn't really I got a job, like I said. So I was more sort of balancing. I wasn't just doing homework all the time. I could go to work. I could participate in activities, AFJROTC. I became the squadron commander and all that. So had the job, had the extracurricular activities. Wasn't really overly concerned with grades, but I was still on the advanced math track. So I finished up the math that the school offered, calculus, by junior year. It was because of my high school guidance counselor, Mr. Osborne. Can't remember his first name. Mr. Osborne was, I think it was my freshman year, in fact. He said, you're going to be done with the math that we have here by the time you're a junior. You might be interested in some interesting school like an MIT or a Caltech or Harvey Mudd. And I remember specifically that day saying, what is Harvey Mudd? And boy, do I know better now, having graduated from Harvey Mudd College in 1993. So the take home, the reason I'm telling this whole story, I have this weird, not like exceptionally weird, but a weird self-driven, almost rebellious educational history where, Mrs. Urban didn't want me to read. The elementary school, the Horizon principal was not supportive of me escaping the bounds of the curriculum. I think there was some commentary about how I was making things difficult because I needed more than they had to offer. They're aiming at the average student. That's built into the system. Switching to Royal Palm, I took more ownership and had more independence partially because I had to get home sometimes on my own. Occasionally, that was always a weird bus situation, but mostly waiting for rides, getting there early in the morning, getting a ride from the parents, usually my mom, to get home. And so doing the homework. Eventually we got a VCR. So I would record David Letterman. You remember David Letterman, right? Record his show. I would get up at 4 a.m. I would watch the show taped. I would have breakfast and I would do my homework, get on a bus, go to school in high school. So I'm sorry. So I got on the bus in high school, but I started doing my homework early in the morning in junior high. It's all a blur. So the take home there was like, oh, I don't have to be told to do homework. I wasn't, no dessert until home. No, none of that. So I was completely self-directed, still going to the library now and then, working in libraries. By the way, I would work in a library in college too for work study. The high school library at Sunny Slope, I think I went into that place about twice. So I could just go to the bigger, new, improved library in Glendale near my house. They had better books. Is that even a thing? Better books? I don't know. So when I look now at education, when I watch students, first of all, I have encountered bored students. Someday when I talk more about college stuff in one of these episodes, I had a work study job where I would tutor students at an elementary school down the street, walking distance from my school. So I'd walk down there. I was told that the students were slow, that they were falling behind. They needed to be, they needed to be tutored to catch up, right? I learned very quickly that, in particular, this one student, and this was like 5th grade, I think. She, we're bored. I mean, I'm sorry, she didn't say we're bored. We're slow. We're falling behind. So one day she asked me about exponents and algebra, and I started talking to the students about what they were curious about, and it became immediately clear that they were bored out of their minds in class. That sounded familiar. And so I told the teacher, these kids aren't slow. They're not falling behind because they are not capable. They're falling behind because they are falling asleep, literally. So I have seen this myself, and I've seen it happen with students. I've seen it even recently with some of my volunteer time with junior achievement here at some of the schools. I think 7th grade is the key point. It's a turning point when students are figuring out what they're really interested in. If they are empowered to pursue those things, I believe they will succeed, or more likely to. I really think the flipped classroom is a game changer. You have to be a little bit self-directed, obviously, so it's not for everyone. If you're a student who doesn't like doing work or learning, that's probably not for you. I think I don't know if it's specifically for No Child Left Behind, but one of the features of that is that testing. You get 90% of your grade from testing. Testing is a solo activity. It's a one-shot deal. If the test is very simple, you just pass the class. Did you learn anything? Nope. Unfortunately, I can see the effects of that in my interactions with some people who have gone to school recently. So they're, upper teenage, lower 20 age range. I can see the impact of that in students who were left to their own devices and only had to test out. They just, homework, it's only worth a few points. Why do it? Collaborate with other students. Why do it? I mentioned the morning with Zeke Ashley's class. Again, not cheating, but literally like, oh, okay, how did you do this? Or how does this one work? I got this, you got that. And this is something in a school setting is great. You're learning how to collaborate and how to learn from your peers. You're not being told something at the chalkboard, although Zeke was not that simple in his teaching methodologies. But when you actually learn how to collaborate and learn from your peers, now you're able to do that into the future when when you take project-based classes, when you're collaborating, in your first job in a workplace, right? If you can actually engage with people socially to learn from them. That was an actual skill that we were learning there. So flipped classroom really requires proaction on the part of the student. And then I think also clearly a home that is very pro-education is helpful. If you can have academic discussions. Like I said, I learned how to read because there are photos of this somewhere. We had the Cat in the Hat books, Dr. Seuss. You may think whatever you like to about some of his other work, but Cat in the Hat, simple to get started, interesting, wordplay and so on. So I learned how to read those with my parents. I think my mom was basically showing me how to read to give me something to do. I was always spoken to and interacted with like a normal person, no baby talk. So learned how to read, learned how to interact. So socializing and learning kind of connected in a useful way. So the flipped classroom, like I said, is my favorite until something better comes along. I think the flipped classroom is the way to go. I think this would have paid off in substantial winnings during pandemic times when there was a lot of homeschooling. If students could be self-directed in a flipped classroom scenario, so you are responsible for the reading and the homework and the learning. And when you would get on a Zoom call or whatever with your teachers, with your classmates, you're now not learning from them. You're talking about what you learned. You're correcting it, just like the morning with the Zeke's class. So like, I did the homework. Why couldn't I get number 7? I read this book. What does it mean? Why did they all have to sign in a circle? Or what is an amendment? You can do this with anything. History is important, lest we repeat it. So clearly science lab classes are tricky. There's a time and a place, but you can do the reading, you can do the research, you can learn about stuff. And then when you go to the lab, you are interacting. You have a lab partner. You have a lab setting where you have multiple people running experiments or making things. Maybe it's a makerspace scenario where you're using power tools. You should know how to use them before you get there, right? So I really think flipped classroom, based on my own experience, being self-directed, it does take a certain sort of personality, but that is something that should be cultivated from the moment the young one returns from the hospital. I say returns because the kid was there the whole time, right? About 9 months. So flipped classroom, don't focus too much on grades. It is the learning part that matters, not the grading of it, or at least not simple binned grade results. I was never really concerned with it. Occasionally that would bite me a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was the learning part that mattered, not the GPA. Harvey Mudd College never suffered from grade inflation, which was made very clear early on. You're competing against student. I took a class I took 2 math classes away from Harvey Mudd over the summer. And I learned that the people who are getting better grades, because grades do not map across different schools, So an A at this school, it would be ridiculous. You're doing C-level work at Harvey Mudd, but you're getting an A for it. So there was no way you're going to compete on grade point average in the world. So I divorced myself of that notion, stopped worrying about grades, learned a tremendous amount, took responsibility for my learning, which is something I think is missing. And I was able to access curriculum and pursuit of ideas that were not based on underperforming students in the classroom, self-directed. I could escape this. So sometimes the classroom is for people who cannot direct themselves, cannot take responsibility, or more importantly, cannot pursue things that are actually interesting to them. And the fun part is, when am I ever going to use this? If you can answer that question, or even better, have the person asking it discover the answer in practical ways, you may find that those students will do better because they understand that doing better for themselves pays off. They don't have to impress people with grades. They can impress themselves with what they know and what they can start building. If you interact with a maker community, you have young people, very young sometimes, writing code, building robots. Sometimes they're more inclined at the humanities and history or art, creative works. Sometimes they're great writers. But if you encourage these things and if you are able to draw their interests out of them so that they exercise them, my opinion, starting around 7th grade. So it's just age 12. There's something about the way this could change if the entire curriculum scheme and timeline of our students in public school systems change. Maybe the Montessori system would be better. Maybe free-for-all, maybe universal homeschooling. Who knows? But there's something about age 12, the way things are set up now, where you begin switching classes, you have multiple teachers, you're interacting with different groups of students in different areas. You probably have more extracurricular activities, so you're able to channel some of your interests into things you actually want to do, clubs, sports, etc. So 7th grade, I maintain to this day, that is the turning point. Here in Vegas, I have a 10-year outlook based entirely on 7th grade students today making this happen. They'll be 22 in 10 years-ish. They'll be out of college if they don't pursue advanced degrees or postgraduate work, PhDs or JDs or anything like this. So 22 years old, 10 years from now, from today, if we start this today, if we start enabling interests and letting those interests drive a pro-action to learn, to succeed, and to do it in a social setting so that there's collaboration and mutual elevation. If we can do that, maybe the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which I talk about so frequently in the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, maybe that will come to pass here. Maybe we'll have a stronger basis on which to build these plans, to cultivate these ideas about all these things. So the take home, be cool, stay in school. If you are a student, definitely do that. If you know a student, if you have a student, or if you are near one, try to encourage them to pursue their interests and to try things, to read about things. I was going to school before the internet. The internet didn't really spark up until I was 2 years out of college. I was working at Apple, discovered the Mosaic browser running on my admin machine. I downloaded it, but on my LC2, Macintosh LC, Mac LC2, I think that's what it was. A little tiny thing with a 12-inch screen, whatever, like off in the corner. Oh, there's 5 websites. There they are. Okay, on to the next thing. Oh, how far we have come. You can literally read anything, anywhere, anytime. You can do it in multiple languages. You can do it in large type. There's no reason not to find an interest and pursue it. Don't let TikTok tell you things, or don't let TikTok tell your student things. There are so many better ways to learn. I feel fortunate that I did not have the internet at my disposal, and that I actually had to find devices, computers and otherwise, to use and learn about, but I also had to do the old-fashioned reading of books, going to libraries, interacting with librarians, figuring out how to find a book. There was no Google search running in the library, right? Card catalogs, Dewey Decimal Systems, signing my name on a card and getting it date stamped, bringing books back. All these things are foreign now. It took more work to learn, and I'd like to think I put that in. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I have many opinions on education and what we can do with it, or what we should do to it. I really think that our future is dependent entirely. I don't know if there should be a song written about this, but it is based on the young people actually taking an active interest in learning. Recently, I don't want to harp on this too much, but recently I bookmarked it somewhere. Math and science, precocity. There are no precocious math and science, not none. Precocity is diminished. It is dipping. Real interest in learning about these things is not where it could be. My recent experience with Space Apps Challenge, to see the level of participation, not only the level of participation, which, it is what it is, it could always grow. The level of interest, it does take a village, you could say. There needs to be a sort of an energized community around this kind of learning, that people realize and understand the value of people being interested, and you, as a part of a community, should be interested in that interest, if that makes sense. So really disappointed in some of the aspects of how I've engaged with students, how I've engaged with companies, government agencies, and so on in my travels here. Can those change? Absolutely. Will those change today? Completely no. Hard no. Will they change eventually? They better. Does this apply where you are? Not sure. You can tell me if you want. Anyway, I thank you. Remember, buy me a coffee. If for nothing else, I do have links to the other shows I do. You don't have to actually buy me a coffee, but again, Jordan, thanks. I have a couple of previous supporters from when I'm rebooting this show, Quaggling Sand. In case you're curious, Quaggling Sand, I didn't mention it at the top of the show. When I was very young, as I was reading, when you sit on your hand or your foot or you circulatory block, and then as the circulation returns, as you stand up or as you get off your hand or whatever you're doing, as the circulation returns, you get pins and needles, but I called it quaggling sand. So some sort of chaotic notion of things bouncing around inside my hand or foot, my head, whatever. The origin of quaggling sand. So quaggling sand is on there. FFS talk is on there. Those are specific, what works, what doesn't. I think this week I'm going to do moderation, as in content moderation. It's a challenge. I have my take on it. And of course, Let's Innovate for Vegas Foundation has its episodes of Let's Innovate for Vegas. I'm sorry, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. And Cafe Genius Impresarios, which I've mentioned, is about being entrepreneurial, innovative here in the greater Vegas area. So there you go. A couple things keeping me busy, and could always use more coffee, but no pressure. That's where I'll leave it. Have a nice day. Enjoy the holidays. The end of the year is upon us. We'll see what 2024 brings. And in the meantime, I will keep up the weekly schedule and see what comes of it. Bye now.